This is Hunt Nebraska, the official podcast for insight into Nebraska's hunting and shooting sports community. Be sure to give us a follow on Facebook, our space for sharing stories, information, tips, and techniques. Now, Hunt Nebraska.
All right, we are back in the Hangout. Hunt Nebraska Hangout, folks. Thanks for taking us wherever you might be listening or watching us. We appreciate you giving us a like, giving us a subscribe on that podcast app that you might be using, or make sure you give us a like on Hunt Nebraska Facebook. Real quick, he's Jeff, that's Jackson, I'm Hershey, and we've got super producer Kayla Gadeken. All of us are part of the Nebraska Game and Parks Commission, and we're here, guys, to kind of wrap up, take a step back. We've done some hangouts now here in the Hunt Nebraska headquarters. Now we're going to step back where it all began, to how to deer. You guys remember talking about how to deer? Yeah. It seems like such a long time ago, doesn't it?
It does, even though it's...
I heard of it.
You've heard of it?
Yep.
Good. Memory's a good thing to go into later life with, Jeff. But here we are. We are officially, as we record this, just after the ever-popular November firearm deer season for the 2021 season. And as we promised, one of the things we were kind of looking forward to is getting together, telling some stories, talking about some of our successes, some of our failures, some of the things that we saw challenging, some neat opportunities, maybe some good stories as well. Kind of get pumped up for the rest of the deer season, because it's not over. Just the November firearm season's over. There's plenty of opportunities to still get out there and hunt deer here in the great state of Nebraska. And perhaps for those that joined us for all of our other How to Deer episodes, give you a little insight to the reality of Nebraska deer hunting, which doesn't fit into a 30-minute podcast, nor does it fit into a 30-minute video or TV show or anything like that, because there's a lot of ins and outs to it. First of all, anybody in here harvest a deer yet?
I don't think there's, unless you're saving something for the finale here, Hershey, I don't think there's a member of this team that has shot a deer this year.
I was around for one, but it wasn't my shot.
Wasn't your shot? Oh, that's right. We'll get into that, because the next question is, who is taking a shot at a deer during the 2021 deer season? That's from September 1st all the way through now. Oh, we got two hands up. They can't see
Who
the
hasn't even
hands.
cocked a hammer? Who hasn't even put their fingers on a string yet?
Well, you always take practice shots with the bow.
No.
Yeah,
I can tell you right now, no shots, but incredible hunts. Let's put it that way.
Oh, good.
Very good hunts.
Now, before we get off this point, though, because the podcast listeners can't see hands being risen, you're going to have to say if you have taken a shot at a deer.
I don't think we need to announce that.
I think they can go back to our podcast and listen to those.
I'd say 50%, right, Jeff?
Yeah, it sounds like right down the middle. Of course, catty corner if you're looking at the table here. Yeah.
Which is just impressive, because, to be honest with you, that's what hunting is about. Finding that one opportunity, or maybe a couple opportunities, at what you're after.
The hunt where I missed that deer was still my favorite hunt of the year so far. It was action packed and just didn't quite end up with the way I wanted, but I still had a smile on my face when I got back to the truck. Regardless, it was a good one. It was a good.
Now, Kayla, I know there's probably a little frustration, but some excitement and adrenaline in the snap that you sent us about the shot that may or may not have happened, depending on how you want to play this.
In the beginning, adrenaline. In the end, a lot of frustration.
That sounds like hunting.
Yes.
I mean, that's the cool thing, in my opinion, about hunting. You can be so close, and yet things don't quite work out, which is okay. That's part of it. Season observations. Let's start there. Let's take a step back. How would you guys, in one or two words, describe the 2021 deer season so far?
I've been having a great year. I've heard some very mixed reviews from friends and online.
So your two words would be great year?
Yeah, I'm having a great year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jeff?
I've had two different seasons so far. One in the extreme southeast and one in the extreme northwest. I would say southeast, very disappointing for what we saw for deer. We had 6 hunters in our camp, and 5 didn't see a deer. And in an area where we'd see 20, 30 deer, sometimes in the morning easily. And so that was disappointing. But then I saw some monsters harvested just like a mile or two north of where we're hunting, and so they're there, but there weren't very many deer that we saw in our location. Northwest, incredible. I thought the Northwest was just fantastic with deer.
How about you, Kayla?
I don't know if I can pinpoint 2 words, but maybe slow and frustrating.
Okay, well that's 2.
Was that supposed to be 2 words?
Yeah, that's she got an ampersand in there.
Yeah.
I didn't know I was supposed to limit it to 2 words. I can't even introduce myself in 2 words. So.
Thank goodness they gave you a short name, though, Jeff.
Yeah, thank goodness.
But, I guess what I would say is odd. That would be my one word to describe it. From what I'm hearing from others, I've had some great hunts. I've had some just fun hunts to set there. I've never had one where I picked up the bow and latched on the release thinking, all right, here it's going to happen. But at the same token, I've had some really fun hunts where I've seen some activity, deer chasing deer, just being out there, seeing raccoons, coyotes, all that type of stuff, which is part of the hunt just as much as the deer themselves at times. But overall, it's just weather-wise. We talked about it on here on our Hangouts, and folks, if you haven't heard any of those, you're going to want to look those up on your favorite podcast app as well. But, it stayed warm for quite a while.
It's still warm.
Still, yeah. I mean, we're recording this. They're talking 60s tomorrow. At the end of November, that is warm. We had a full moon during the November firearm season.
That made things interesting.
That usually does.
Mm-hmm.
Not that deer don't oftentimes run in the evening, but with all that extra light and not having nasty weather to deal with, just makes it that much easier.
Yeah.
And then on top of it, we talked about it here as well, how long the leaves stayed on the trees. And during some of the archery season, boy, it was hard to see 70, 80, 90 yards away at times where maybe there were deer moving through there that you just didn't see this year. So, all right, didn't see any deer. Well, normal year, maybe you would have. But put that on top of, like you said, Jeff, there were people that were feast or famine. Mm-hmm. There were folks in certain spots that I didn't see the deer I normally do or expected to see, and others it's like, wow, where did all these deer come from? Jackson, I think you mentioned it seemed like a lot of young bucks.
Yeah, well, we saw a lot of does and a lot of young bucks this year.
I mentioned that I saw very few does that had twins. Oftentimes it was just one fawn, if any, and you've seen quite a few.
Yeah, we've seen triplets.
Yeah.
So, I mean, again, it's one of those things I think, especially with deer hunting, that a lot of our listeners, especially those new to deer hunting, probably don't understand, is it can change and flow so much.
Well, and you got to keep in mind that every one of us is talking from a very small sphere of observation. Mm-hmm. And so that always makes it challenging because it really doesn't matter what's going on in Nebraska. It's what you saw in that little field that you're hunting. And it's a bubble. Every place is a little micro bubble. And it, one bubble could be great, the next bubble not so well. Just the way it is.
That's an excellent point. I always say that in your season can be made with one deer. You might not see any other deer, but if it's the right deer, if it's your first deer, if it's that doe you've been chasing, if it's that buck you've been dreaming out, whatever it is, might be the best season ever, and you only see one deer.
Unless you miss, then 2 deer. It takes 2 deer to make the season.
Ouch.
That was a low blow.
Wow.
Oh, to the heart. Oh, to the heart.
He says he's not an archer, but my goodness, that was straight to the heart right there. Wow.
Oh, no, I am an archer. That's the problem. I just haven't practiced it a little bit.
But, all right, here we go. I've got some questions. And, Jeff, we're going to start with you on this one. For no other reason than hey, I haven't started with you on the other questions. Best fail of the deer season so far.
Best fail the deer season.
Best fail, and everyone's going to get this question because I want to know. And part of the reason we're asking this one is because it's not quite as nicely packaged and wrapped as some videos or YouTube channels will show you. I mean, they put a lot of effort into those. Don't get me wrong, but at the same token, once you do the editing, you can edit out a lot of the sit and wait, see nothing stuff. So, and hunting includes some fails.
Yeah. Best fail, no question about it. Just this last weekend in the Pine Ridge. Yeah. And I'm in the timber or where the timber meets an alfalfa field. And it was a really good spot. And the first 2 evenings I had about 17, 18 deer in front of me at any one time, some bucks, some does. And I was really enjoying it. I was enjoying watching them, interact. I was enjoying watching those bucks snoop out the does, try to find any does that might be in heat. And in the sundown, of course, it's shooting hours are over. And my brother-in-law and I are both sitting in the same ground blind because we'll sit in the same ground blind, talk, and have a good time, And we've got a field loaded with deer, and there's more deer coming into the field. And it's, we're talking now. It's been half hour after shooting hours, and we want to leave, but there's deer all around us, and we're thinking to ourselves, we could sneak out of here, And so, of course, guns have been unloaded, and we're sitting there just kind of waiting it out, and it's getting cold. When the sun goes down in the Pine Ridge, it's a whole different world than when the sun's up. And we decided we could sneak out of here. It's getting pretty dark. These deer aren't going to notice us. And I'm not kidding you. I never saw so much movement in my life. That zipper, first off, I got to oil that zipper. It was just the loudest zipper. But as I got out of the blind, that didn't do it. But when I got out of the blind and they saw my ugly face, all of a sudden it was just like organized chaos. They all knew where they were going, but it was just a mess. And I turned back to my brother and I looked and I said, maybe that wasn't the right call. He said, I don't think you spooked. I said, are you kidding me? I never saw a deer run for cover so fast in my life. The next day and the next evening, not barely a sighting in that field. And we had one doe come out in the field, and she stood in the corner of the field, looked at the ground blind that next day and stared at it for probably 20 minutes. And then more does came in behind her, and she led them off to the west and didn't want to go in the field. And I was like, yeah, we really screwed that one up.
So what would you have done differently?
Honestly, I think we learned a lot that day. First off, we had the ground blind in a place where we knew they were entering the field, right? So we were in a good spot to cherry pick every deer coming into that field. What we didn't think about was the exit strategy once they stay in the field. Now, usually they don't. Usually they meander through that field and they're off over the hills into some other field. And so, that's just their exit, their entrance strategy. But this time they all stayed in the field and wanted to eat, and a long time. And we're going to move the blind. Next time we go out there, we're not going to put the blind up there. We're going to put it further back in the field so that we can sneak out the corner of the field and out the fence before they can see us.
And that's something you talk about, Jackson, a lot. And hunting stands and blinds have a way to get in and get out stealthily.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. There's a lot to be said about not only entering the field or entering your spot, but being able to get out.
Jackson's like, yep, that's 101. Anyway, moving on.
Not 101.
But I think it's something hunting. Deer and turkey are probably the ones where it really jumps to mind where, all of a sudden just like, I got to go. And there's something out in the field. I don't want to booger it up for the next time. We've had a close call. Yep. This might be a good spot, but that the deer, that strutting gobbler in the springtime or something like that, just like, right where I got to go.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Right where I got to go.
And then you start making excuses. Oh, I can do this very stealthily. They'll never even know I'm there. And then it's like every blade of grass, clang, clang, clang. You couldn't make any more noise. And so it's just like, well, that didn't go as planned. But exit strategy. That's a good one, Jack. You should have said that earlier in How to Deer. I might have picked up on that.
I might have. We should go back in the records.
Might have is right. So, all right, Kayla, best fail of the season so far.
My best fail would be that big buck that I missed.
Okay, we're getting more out of her. You see how this is working? Okay.
Go back and listen to our last podcast, the first weekend rifle season, to listen to the whole story. But quickly, I just got out of the blind too quick. And hindsight's always 20/20. Looking back, I definitely could have gotten back into my blind. I definitely had enough time. I could have done it quietly, but that's the shot I took and missed. So. Okay.
Now, what was back in the blind that might have helped?
Everything.
Yep.
All greatness of humanity. I'm suggesting it might be a rest.
Yes.
Yeah. There's a reason you brought that rest to the blind, right?
And rangefinder.
And a rangefinder. And a chair. And cover.
All the things you need to make a happy shot.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing? No matter how well you prepare, when all that stuff isn't there, it's kind of like, oh boy.
Still go time.
And then we just, it is. And sometimes we do just kind of think that we've got less of a chance than we really do. If we just, all right, slow this down. Let's make sure, same thing. So how are you going to solve that next time?
Stay in my blind longer, I guess.
Less coffee in the morning.
The funny thing is this is the first year I've hunted in an actual full blind with an actual chair that I sit up off the ground with a rangefinder, with a shooting stick. I did the whole 9 yards this year. And the moment that I didn't have it,
that's when everything went to heck. Huh?
They know. Yep. They know. Yep. Just go duck hunting. Yeah. As soon as you exit the blind, it's just like, there they are.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kind of nice, though, having that all set up that
It
way,
is
isn't
very
it?
nice.
I mean, it just almost feels like cheating at times until they, like you said, get caught outside
so
of it.
much warmer, too.
Oh,
Right now, there's a big buck walking around. Goes, she had all that crap in the blind. I waited until she got out. You should have seen the look on her face. Yeah, they know.
They do.
They
They do. It happens more than just coincidence. So, all right, Jackson, same question. Best fail of the 2021 deer season so far?
Yeah, the best fail would be my miss as well. I ranged out everything where I thought a deer would come from, and he chose the one route that I did not anticipate a deer coming from. It was pretty interesting to watch because I grunted at him, and that's what brought him a little closer. And then he hung up at 45 yards and just looked. It was amazing. Older buck, and he got to that point where he should be seeing another deer that just grunted at him, and he's looking, just standing there on the edge of the cover, just looking. And you could see the wheels in his head turning, and he'd go, I'm going to circle downwind.
Now's the time.
He was like, yeah, I'm gonna circle downwind and see if I can't smell this buck. And I had to make my shot, and misjudged by 5 yards, and that was
all it took.
A little duck and 5 yards wrong on the yardage, and
they know
right over his back.
Now he was closer.
Yes, yeah,
than you thought he was.
Correct.
And in your case, Kayla, he was just a little further than you thought he was.
By about 100 yards, yeah.
It was a lot further.
Missed it by that much.
And this is why in bow hunter education we talk about one of the most common misses.
It's a test question. Yep. Most common reason archers miss a deer. Misjudge the distance.
And I gotta assume, Jeff, you're kind of the rifleman in the group. That's got to probably happen a lot of times with rifles. Now, with rifles, it's a little bit bigger window that you have to connect, because a lot of folks sight in their guns, so they're on at 100 to 200 yards, so you've got a little extra space. But when you're talking 40, 50 yards beyond that, I mean, things change a little bit.
Oh, they do, and of course you're talking, when you're talking eastern versus western Nebraska, it's a whole different ballgame. Deer standing out there at 200 yards in western Nebraska looks a lot different than a deer standing out there 200 yards in eastern Nebraska. 200 yards east looks like it's forever away. 200 yards out west looks like it's right out in front of the blind, and so that's just something to keep in mind. But this is where, again, the missing deer, and I've never missed it. I can't even lie about it. But anyway, missing a deer, there's a lot of factors come into play here. But distance isn't necessarily as big a factor for people hunting with a rifle, because if you use ballistics and you use your ballistics calculators online, you can determine, okay, 2.5, 2 3 inches high at 100 yards. You're within about a 3-inch for most high-powered rifles. You're within about a 3-inch zone out to 300 yards. So I always tell people, distance for rifles isn't necessarily the big issue. Being able to hit that distance is a lot of times the big issue. Yeah, and of course, farther away, the harder they are to hit, and they look very different in the scope. But most people, once sighted in properly, should be able to hold on just fine out to 250, sometimes 300 yards. But very few rifle people are able to hit at that range consistently.
The rifle's able to do it.
The rifle can do it all day long. If the rifle can't do it, you screwed up long before the season started. You need to remedy that. But most rifles can do that all day long. The hunter, on the other hand, it takes some practice.
Well, the other thing I sometimes see is that people, when you hear about, I got this deer at 400 yards or 500 yards or something like that, there are people and rifles that can do that.
Yeah.
Takes a lot of practice.
Very few people
or a lot of luck. But at the same token, I'm guessing, especially here on the eastern side of the state, that was probably a little closer than they really thought it was oftentimes. But all right, I'll give you my best fail just to be fair.
I'm interested.
And it's kind of that fail to prepare to fail type thing. I mean, the first hunt is always the toughest. You got to find all the pieces of the puzzle. You got to make sure they're in the right spot. So I tried to throw it together, go on my first archery hunt, and about halfway to the spot, I was like, crap. I just printed off my deer permit. It's still sitting back there on the kitchen table because I know I got to sign it, and I was going to sign it just as I left the door. So I turned around, drove back, grabbed it, headed out. Now, I still had enough time. I got up early enough, Jeff, so that wasn't a huge deal. Until I got halfway out there and was like, crap, I don't even have a bow. So I had to go back home, grab the bow. Luckily,
There's all
the arrows
sorts of errors in
were
this
right
story.
there. Well, you're just so excited about going hunting. There's a lot of pieces to it. I had enough snacks for 2 days. I had enough.
You're one of those
hot
guys
chocolate,
that gets there and forgets his truck, right?
Snicker bars, all that stuff. Some of that important stuff. Just like, well, I can't hunt without that. Now I've tried to harvest a deer without the release, Jackson. I got into the tree and like, oh boy, that's right. I was practicing. I left that back at the office or what have you. And I've tried with fingers, and it doesn't work. But there's certain things out there that just be prepared, be ready to go, and have things ready out there. So, all right. So now I need to go from failures, which we're all going to have, and that's part of the stories. I mean, some of the best hunting stories come about because of those fails out there in the woods, to your best memory so far of the 2021 season. Cool. And Jackson, we ended with you, so we're going to start with you this time. Now, you can't use that buck that you missed because you already talked about him. So what's the next best memory? And I should probably help you here, and it's got to have to do with something with Katie and a deer harvest or something like that.
Yep, that's definitely the highlight so far. Yes, yep. But thank you for saving me on that one. Just in case.
No problem. Just lead you down the path of success there, Jackson.
Thursday of rifle season, we had a good one. Katie had decided she was, looking at the rest of the week. She probably wasn't going to be able to get out, but maybe Sunday. So anyways, she was on the truck ride out. She said, I'm going to shoot a doe if I see one. So sounds great. And beautiful bright moon. We knew it was going to be, nice and clear, had that full moon, and they were moving early. And it was kind of interesting to watch. We'd seen almost 10 deer. There was 5 does out in front of us, and getting closer to legal shooting time. And here comes the last doe, and she chased all the deer out of that field. It had literally 2 minutes before. Doe. Yeah, she walked up to the group, pinned her ears back, and chased them all out of the field. And we kind of looked at each other in disbelief as we looked at our phones and realized that we had 2 minutes left till shooting time. So, but 45 minutes later, another doe came out, nice adult doe, and Katie made a shot. We were pretty confident of it right away until we went to recover her, and didn't see what we wanted to see in the field there. It wasn't your classic blood trail. So we backed out, we left, and decided to come back that afternoon to recover her, so we didn't bump her. And turns out Katie made a perfect shot and heart shot her, and somehow the front of the stomach was lacerated, and that's what we found in the field. But the deer was dead 10 yards inside the timber.
Oh,
so
it worked out perfect.
Yeah.
And if Katie's listening, the rest of us knew, Jackson, that she made a perfect shot. That was never in doubt.
Yeah.
Never in question.
New rifle too, correct?
Yeah, yep. Her first take with the new rifle, the wedding present. So that was
joined
cool.
the 6.5 Creedmoor bandwagon.
Yeah, she did. Yep,
that's awesome.
Yep,
it was great cartridge.
Oh, it was. She loves it. She can shoot it all day, and yeah, it's a great gun. And yeah, just for whatever reason, I don't know if it was a piece of the bullet or whatnot, but lacerated the front of the stomach, and that's what we found in the field, even though that deer was dead 20 yards from us. Yeah. So,
and that just kind of goes to show, I think in deer hunting, probably more than anything else, you know things, you see it with your own eyes. You're all right. This is perfect. This is great, and yet every once in a while, something weird just kind of happens like that, and you start kind of questioning yourself, and that's. Unfortunately, that's what all of us hunters go through. In this case, unfounded. Yep. But every once in a while, we let that creep in.
Yeah.
It's just kind of all those inches and angles and all that type of stuff that can happen. Now, were you sitting on the ground?
We were. Yep, we were in a ground blind.
See, and I noticed that changes things oftentimes as well. The beauty of being up in that elevated platform is just that exit opening on the bottom. Then you get that classic blood trail oftentimes.
Yep.
It seems like where that level shot, oftentimes it takes a little bit longer.
You bring up an interesting point, though, Hershey, because, questioning yourselves, we don't have the skills that your hunters had maybe 50, 60, 100 years ago. It is a game of skill, right? It's a game of proving your skills sometimes to yourself, because you don't do these things all the time. You don't practice them as often as hunters might have practiced them 50, 60 years ago even. And so I think it's easy to question yourself out there in the field. Yeah, and I think even some of the best hunters will question themselves, him or herself, just because, that it's by day, I'm not this at all. This is just who I want to be, as a hobby when I can. And unfortunately, it may be just very few moments out of the year that I can do this. But it's pretty easy to do, question yourself. But, that's where practice comes in. You question it, but it was all perfect.
Well, I could hear the wheels turning in her head as we were driving back because she's asking me, she'd be quiet for a while and then she'd ask a question. Have you ever wounded a deer before? And then she'd be quiet for a while, and then she'd, well, this wasn't how the first kill with my rifle was supposed to go, and you could tell she was kind of down about it, but it all turned out.
So she picked up pretty good when she realized she made the perfect shot.
Oh yeah,
she was pretty happy.
We walked up to that deer, and she's like, she just pointed out. She goes, "It was perfect." She goes, "It was right where." She goes, "It was right where I thought it would be."
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
But I think that one tip that we can have probably all agree upon for new hunters is if you do have doubts, especially after the shot, regardless of muzzleloader that's coming up next month, rifle, archery, crossbow, spear, whatever. When in doubt, back out. Yeah.
Amen.
Give it more time. I think sometimes that we do start doubting ourselves, Jeff, and that's when we start making those rash decisions. Well, I'm just going to go up here and make sure that it's just laying there.
Why are you looking at me, Hershey?
Well, you're the one that brought up the idea, and I think it's an excellent point that we do question ourselves. And the less experience we have, the more we question it. And even especially when it goes from, I know I made a good hit, to, oh my goodness, there's signs here that are showing, but maybe I didn't. What possibly could go wrong? And so you want to reassure yourself. And the only way that happens is to find the deer. And the best thing to do is one of the toughest things to do, and that's
walk away.
Give it time, walk back, disappear. And that's something that even experienced hunters, I think, have to learn over and over and over again. All right, Jeff, best memory.
It was the opening weekend, and it didn't really involve a deer. We were deer hunting, and my brother-in-law and his dad and I were sitting in a ground blind or a tower blind together, and we hadn't seen much deer. We weren't really, assuming we were going to see many deer, but so the three of us climbed in together just to kind of have some fun and talk. We hadn't hunted together in a while, so we were having and we just had a blast. I mean, and his dad was just laughing up a storm, and we were just coming up with just the goofiest things and just having a good time. And my brother-in-law mentioned it the other day that, he and his dad, they had a lot of fun that day. And I said, it was just a fun evening. We spent the entire afternoon and evening together in that blind, telling stories, laughing, and all. I always won't forget the laughs. I mean, he was laughing pretty hard. I was laughing. And, we don't get as many hunts as we'd like. And there is a time in the near future for a lot of folks where those are going to come to an end, and to have some fun like that, in the blind together, that camaraderie, it was good. It was a lot of fun. We really had a good time.
That's pretty cool. Kayla?
My favorite memory would be a little tiny 2x1. Little tiny buck came by, and I don't think he really understood what was going on. He was just kind of tromping around, going this way and going that way, and really didn't care that I was there. I was getting ready to shoot him, and then made the last minute decision of, no, I'm not going to do that. And my gun moved, and he looked right at me for 3 or 4 minutes, and then just kept on kind of walking around, and he should have left. But anyway, I was able to do some doe calls at him and get him to kind of come back and respond to those a little bit. So being able to have that practice where I can see what the deer are responding to, what they're not responding to, was really neat.
You can learn a lot by just the deer you're not going to harvest, just watching them be deer. It's pretty impressive. Now, this is the first time you've hunted this piece of property too, right? I mean, I remember there being questions, well, I think we've seen deer there before. Now we're hearing Jackson about a big buck.
A big buck.
Some small bucks and does moving around this area too. It sounds like a pretty good spot.
Yeah, it was very a last-minute spot. This property had a bunch of horses on it, and they removed the horses off this pasture in July, August maybe. So I really didn't have much time to get in there to make the proper adjustments to the landscape to really attract deer. I just kind of put a couple of trail cams out, and really only 1 or maybe 2 does is all I had on my cameras for the whole property. So going into this hunt, I was only expecting a doe, hoping maybe the first weekend, all the movement, maybe a buck will walk by, which is what did happen. But I didn't expect anything other than a doe or 2.
Sometimes those hunts that you're not expecting much can be the most exciting and memorable. to be quite honest with you. That's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have the opportunity, I think the take-home message there is when you have the opportunity, hunt.
Yep.
Go find a good spot to sit and try a new spot. Go in with what expectations you want, but get out there, enjoy it. All right, you guys aren't done deer hunting for this season, right?
No, sir.
I'm seeing a lot of heads being shaken here. You probably can't hear that. You'll have to watch it on YouTube. So what are some of the things you're looking forward yet this year, Kayla?
Excited to get back out and get a deer.
When you headed back out, do you think?
I was offered a muzzleloader hunt in December that I think I'm going to take advantage of. I've never hunted with a muzzleloader. I've barely even shot a muzzleloader. So having that opportunity to go hunting with one will be really neat.
I'm looking forward to muzzleloader season. I really am. What about you, Jeff?
Yeah, I just want to get to that status where I get invites like that too. I was offered another hunt here, and then I got to make an appearance here. That's pretty impressive. I'm looking forward to that day. Muzzleloader season. I've got, of course, for me it's hunting handguns, and I've got to build a handgun up for muzzleloaders, and so a big single shot pistol, and so looking forward to getting out and chasing deer in the muzzleloader season. New area, a different area that gets fairly heavily used as the season wears on, but we got to get some weather to push deer into this area of any more consistency. And so, it depends on what the weather's going to do. But
I'm going to say muzzleloader hunters, you kind of do hope for some cold,
snowy weather.
Maybe some good amounts of snow. When you say more use, are you talking from the deer or deer hunters?
Yeah, no, okay. From the deer. Yeah,
from the deer.
Yeah, they like this area when things turn ugly, and it can be really consistent. But if they don't turn ugly, it's just can be anybody's guess. They could be there, they could be anywhere. So,
is there anything more disappointing than a warm muzzleloader season?
No, and again, I don't like muzzleloader seasons where you're sitting out there in a in a sweatshirt and and your blaze orange vest over a sweatshirt and regular pants, and you're sitting there going, you got the baseball cap on instead of the stocking cap. You're going, man, this you'll see grasshoppers hopping around. Go, this is December. It's almost Christmas. There should be grasshoppers, and so I don't care for that. You want for muzzleloader, you want that weather because it dictates deer movement, and then cold fronts move in, deer movement. Snow front moves in, deer movement. And so it can become pretty easy to predict during December. Not easy to necessarily be in the right place at the right time always, but at least you can predict deer movement.
Well, I've definitely found that sometimes you're not out there soon enough. I love the afternoon hunts for muzzleloader season, but I'm shocked sometimes at how soon they will come out. Deer that are now considered nocturnal and don't ever show up during daylight hours, all of a sudden they're just like, oh, I can get there about 2 o'clock. And they're out at 1:30 just eating ahead of those fronts. It's just like, oh, man, now I got to sneak in. So there's some good stuff there. So we got 2 for muzzleloader. What are you looking forward to? You getting back out with a bow, Jackson?
I am, yeah. I think I'm going to get out once here, probably over this weekend, maybe Thursday morning before Thanksgiving festivities. But yeah, I'll be back out with the bow, and then we'll be breaking out the muzzleloader. So.
Oh, cool.
Yep, that's kind of the gist of it for deer, anyways. We can talk about waterfowl.
And that's the thing. Waterfowl gets in the way, and as soon as there's a flight moving, that takes precedence sometimes over deer. And so, and I know listeners who like deer hunt think that's crazy, but man, oh man, it becomes a conundrum of what you're going to do that morning sometimes.
Only so many days in the season. The nice thing is, if you think of our seasons, we actually have archery goes on till the end of the year. Your archery permit's good for that. Muzzleloader, entire month of December. If you've got one of those antlerless or season's choice tags, they go at least till the 15th of September, if I remember correctly. And some of those private land river antlerless go even further than that. So there's plenty of opportunity out there. So Jeff, what would be your one piece of advice for a new deer hunter watching our final How to Deer podcast for this series for those, opportunities yet during this deer season?
Persistence. Here you've got, I know you're not as a veteran a deer hunter as some of the other guys sitting here, and that's okay, but you've got at least, a couple guys, 3 guys here, and that have quite a bit of experience. You have some experience, and so there's a lot of experience at this table, and we're all sitting here, talking about that first deer for the year, right? And so, I don't care how good a deer hunter you are, you miss sometimes. Nature calls and, it messes things up. Whatever the case may be, you forget half your stuff on the way to deer camp. Whatever the case may be, you got to be persistent because, it may not happen on day 1, day 3, day 5, but when it does happen, you start to piece things together. Okay, that's how it happened. And then next year, you're that much more prepared again. And it's just kind of a glorious thing when it happens. So stay at it. Persistence. And enjoy the leaves falling off the trees. Enjoy watching the squirrels play. Enjoy the sunrise and the sunset. You're only going to get so many of them. But be persistent. It'll happen.
It's amazing how there are seasons where we do put in the hours and we kind of forget about it. But when we were successful, it's just like, I remember that time.
Yeah.
And so next season we go and sit that first, second day and just like, oh, it's taking forever. You forgot about that 2 months that you might have been waiting for that one opportunity because it was all worth it in the end.
You forget about all the and another good point though, because I think a lot of novice hunters, they watch TV, they go out there, I think it should happen in day 1, 2, or 3, and it doesn't. They kind of panic, like, oh, I'm no good at this, or I need to figure that I haven't learned anything. I don't know what I'm doing. Step one is you got to be out there, right? And everybody at this table knows, we're not panicking. It'll happen or it won't. But we've had enough seasons to know that there'll be hunts where things just don't go right, and then all of a sudden they, for no reason whatsoever that you know about, they will go absolutely right. And so, just being out there and persistent, I think, is the key.
You brought up something that reminded me of one of my biggest pet peeves, and it has to do with the industry, if you will. Now, it can happen that fast, where you sit that first time ever, and the first 15 minutes of your sit, you might be one of those lucky ones that the deer that you've been dreaming about steps out, and you make a perfect shot. But the one pet peeve I have in a lot of, we'll call them professionals, and there's these guys and gals, don't get me wrong, put a lot of energy, effort, and time into these. But you'll hear them on some of the shows or YouTube channels or whatever it is, and they go out of state and they harvest a beautiful animal. Yeah. And they, finally, I've been here for 3 days. I didn't think it was ever going to happen. And I really think like, well, back up here just a second. And it's one of those things like only 3 days. Yeah. And you came from out of state. So, all right, how many times did you actually get to scout that yourself? And you got cameras that you hung this last or what have you. There's a lot of folks doing a lot of work behind the scenes to help some of those be successful on top of it. Not that they're not good hunters, don't get me wrong. But I think it's that whole idea when they hear that, it took 3 full days, you're thinking, okay. Yeah. And now you're done. Ooh, good for you. But it's one of those things that, it takes a while. Yeah. I mean, I think in here, if we took a survey, and we're not going to do this, did we shoot our deer our very first set? Did we shoot our deer the very first weekend we ever hunted? It would probably be a good amount of people like, no. It took a while. It took several days. It might have taken a couple seasons. It might have, who knows? Especially with the different methods and different species that we can chase, but that's a big part of it. All right, Jackson. So what advice would you give the new hunters that have been watching this podcast series, How to Deer, for the rest of this season?
Yep. Afternoons are going to become king. So I'm going to switch to mostly afternoon hunts here, probably about the 1st of December. But also don't sleep on the second rut. If you've got a property with a lot of fawns or a really high, skewed doe to buck ratio, which is what I think I'm looking at this year. I think our, that secondary rut where the fawns come into heat, the first week of December-ish, can be really good. And I've capitalized on that before, and that's kind of high on my list for this year. So watch the weather.
Advice, weather.
Deer move when deer move. That's a lot of different reasons for that. Kayla?
Well, Jackson with 3 tips over there stole my tip.
He does that.
3 tips, Jackson. That's what we call him. That's what we always call him.
My tip was to watch the weather and the time that you're getting out. That the afternoon hunts are really going to be key, and those weather fronts and different changing weather events are really going to play a big role in deer movement.
Yeah.
Hunters, you speak from experience there. I like that. That was very good.
Hunters would do themselves well to watch weather. Especially as we get later in the season,
we're amateur weathermen, so
and choose your weather app wisely. I think that's where we do a lot of ours, and don't trust the weather direction or
I don't
speed.
know how many times. This is not a north wind.
Yeah, exactly, because they don't lose anything by being wrong. Yeah, they really don't.
What a profession, really. If you think about it, you can be wrong 50% of the time. You can go away and come back, and there's no homework, nothing built up on your desk because it's all about tomorrow.
And for the meteorologist watching, that was Jeff Rawlinson.
And we love you. We love you very much. Because when you're right, it's nice. It's really nice. But I don't know how they predict the wind, but they sometimes get it right.
Meteorologists are kind of like offensive linemen, right? When they get it right, we love it. We like them. But when they get it wrong, we remember it and we hold a grudge. We do.
Kickers, too, but we won't talk about those.
Well, they only got to get it right once in a while, though, to be just completely legendary. My God, they're never wrong. Well, not today they weren't. But anyway, yeah.
Now, I like looking forward, too, because I know there's some people that say, all right, rifle season is what I was going to do, and that's already come and gone. I mean, we've got the late antlerless with the season's choice tag that you can take advantage of. But what would be the one thing that you'd say? I want you to think about this. This might be a tougher question. What are you going to do different next year during the rifle season? That either from something you learned this year or something new you want to try out, whatever it is, what would be one thing you would try different or do different in the 2022 November rifle season?
We've got a new stand location picked out.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, there's an area of the farm that we've traditionally left completely alone, but I think we can there's one place where we can hunt the edge of it very smartly with the wind, correct wind and everything.
And I don't think people have enough stands.
Yeah.
To be quite honest with you. And I know that some folks are going to question my thought there, but I have a spot. My brother hunts that we both turkey hunt it, but he deer hunts it, and he's got one stand in there. So he can only hunt it one weather or one direction. And this year when he had an opportunity to hunt it, guess what? He couldn't get that, so he finally went out there and found out some other people kind of moved in on him and have more stands out there so they can hunt it in different wind directions. I'm telling you, we didn't have enough stands out there because, hey, there's only 30 days in November and only 9 days during the rifle season. You got to be present to take part in it. So
I think
that's a good one.
A lot of the information that you learn from this year should be directly applied to next year.
Absolutely.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen. And stand placement and number of stands. Huge piece. Keep adjusting. Move it a little closer. Move it a little more to the edge, more towards the trail, whatever it might be. Jeff.
I'm going to shoot a deer next year. I think that's the difference.
You're going to do it this year. I got faith in you.
You know, it's possible, but during the firearm season, I plan to shoot a deer next year. No, I already alluded to one of the things I'm going to change because when we go up to Pine Ridge, we hunt the same ranch every year. And, just making sure we have that exit strategy because you can't consistently hunt a field if you're going to screw it up on day 2 or spook deer coming in and going. And so, I'll sacrifice. And again, we're hunting with handguns, so we try to get as close as we possibly can to where we think deer are going to come out. And sometimes that bites you in the butt because you sacrifice, like we did this year and it bit us, but you sacrifice your exit and entrance strategy based on being able to be close to where you think the deer are going to come out. But next year we're going to change that, and I'll sacrifice the distance for a location where I can enter and exit the field without being seen or heard as easily. And so that's a big strategy for me. Other than that, I'm not going to change much.
I bet you use a little wax on those zippers though.
Yeah,
on the blind
I'll
zipper.
probably be next year hitting that zipper. Oh man, it's still loud.
If you could just make it sound like
see me doing that.
Squirrels gnawing on acorns.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't see me doing that. But anyway, that's just one of those things that I complain about at the time, but probably not motivated enough to change it.
We got to have those too, don't we? He complains about that every year. I know. If you took it away from him, he'd hate it though.
Cussing, mom, you can change it? No. That's just not on the priority list. The zipper's probably going to be there regardless. And this is a blind that you can just pull the front down and hop in. But no, I got to use the zipper because that's the entrance. That's the doorway.
That's what the instructions say.
It's exactly. Step 1, undo the zipper. Well, that's what I did. Spooked every deer in the county. Step 1, I have a problem with step 1. Anyway.
All right, your turn, Kayla.
I think I'm going to do 2 things. So with this new property, they're not going to put any livestock on it. So I'm going to put in a food plot.
Oh, wow.
I have a little bit of background with the biologist. Yep. So I'm going to put in a food plot with maybe a feeder or a mineral block or something on a different part of the property just to try and draw those deer in because one doe that I'm seeing consistently isn't going to do it. And last year she didn't have any fawns. So if she's not continuing the population, it's a little difficult.
Yeah, if she doesn't have fawns this year, you might need a new doe.
I agree.
just a thought. But I think the food, it'll probably attract more over there, slowing them down and getting some more cameras out. And Jackson knows all the strategies behind that. Because that's the one thing, folks, if you buy a trail camera, if you buy one, first thing you're going to want to do after you go check that trail camera's photos,
buy a second.
Buy a second one. Yeah, it goes uphill from there exponentially. It's like, all right, I got 2, now I need 4. and all that type of stuff. So you've got some big plans. This is going to be all encompassing, but it's kind of fun putting that natural resource degree to work and trying some different things out and having the ability to mess around with it. That is a lot of fun. All right, I think that's kind of all the time we have.
What's your big change?
Go out more.
Okay.
I let way too much sick leave on the table during this month of November, to be quite honest with you. I don't know if I would change anything other than add some stands. Maybe I love new places. I love to sit and see new things. I get kind of those itchy feet, if you will. If I see the same stand, I don't know that I hunted the same stand more than twice. And most stands I hunted once just because of the time I was out there. But I always think, one, I need more time. This is so much fun. Why do I not do this more? When you try to get up at dark 30, sometimes like, why did I get up at all? But once you're out there and the sun starts coming up, oh my goodness. There you go. Yep. I think even this year I'm putting more effort into the muzzleloader season. I think it's going to be pretty darn good, and I always have fun during that as well. So my thing is just time. More time you can put to it, the better success you're going to have. So, folks, I think this pretty well wraps up our How-To Deer series. You can check out all the episodes on our YouTube page or any of the podcast apps that you might be making use of. Make sure to give us a like and a subscribe so you know when the next live one drops here on Hunt Nebraska.
Hunt Nebraska, brought to you by your Nebraska Game and Parks Commission.